Hey, I'm Decathlon Gamer. Welcome back to PCM22 Dragons, and this is episode number 8, and it's on to signing day, beginning with the contract signing, our sponsorship signing. We have now been with Air China for 3 years. The minimum was 2. We've already exceeded that. Last year, there was no offers from Asia beyond Air China. We are hoping to get one this year because we are really approaching the capacity of their sponsorship funding and probably will hit it this coming year or would be very, very close to what that limit is. And therefore, I'd love to kind of break ground with a new sponsor because finances have been quite difficult this year as we are burning through money relatively quickly. I know I've had a lot of comments about signing Lutsenko. We just can't afford him. I mean, that's the bottom line. We cannot afford Lutsenko. His contract, his demands would be just beyond our reach, but beyond our reach to the point that we would go bankrupt under the current circumstances. Therefore, we have to kind of just suck it up and move on and hope that he's available again in, say, 2 years and that we can sign him at that time. By that point, we should have plenty of money. That is, of course, if we can get out of the Air China bubble that we are currently trapped in. Let's find out about that one. And this is not a good sign. It's Denmark. It's Ireland. It's Air China for another year. 99,000 budget, and the estimation max is between 100 and 120. We have gone up by 14,000 this year. I think we were on 85, were we not? And that means another 14k put us at 113. That's right in the middle of that max. Gosh, that feels like that's gonna do it, right? Maybe we get slightly more, maybe we get slightly less, but I think next year's increase would be our final one. With just 2 expiring contracts this year, it's barely going to change what we have. In fact, it's only going to decrease our spending by 5k as they're both making minimum. Le Havre is a decent rider, but at a 71-72, where he was essential a year ago, this year he's already a bit redundant to our needs. And therefore, we don't need to worry about retaining him, as Le Havre is very much near his maximum at this stage. And while Li Mingyu still has plenty of remaining growth potential, the overall of that is quite weak, and he was the final remaining piece of the original roster that we had, as he was the only one on a 3-year deal back at that point. And even though he's only 24, and even though he's not reached his potential, he's not good enough for this squad and really hasn't developed particularly well in 2 years, though he has certainly developed a bit. But he's definitely not a keeper either. So both of these guys are going to be outgoing. Shifting our focus to the finances, just to show you how serious our situation is and how seriously I'm going to have to consider certain aspects before we go in and sign guys for the coming year. First off, month by month expenses as they stand right now. You could see our final day of the month expenses that were just incurred yesterday. Staff, salaries, and then the Young Dragons, our U23 team, plus rider salaries. What that adds up to is 121,100. So 121k. We have 2 expiring contracts, which is going to drop that to 116,000. So 5,000 to the good. But here's the thing. Our monthly investment this year anyway, 85,000. That's quite a bit less than 121k. We're losing 36,000. 36,000 per month. Now, over a 10-month period, that's 360,000. Over a 12-month period, it's what, 430? I mean, that is a lot of money. Okay, that is a lot of money. 430. Where did we start the year? just above 400K. That would be zero balance at the end of the year. But it is offset a little bit by winnings. Your performance does come with financial reward. But you can see from this, outside of Qinghai Lake and Castilla Leon, and it's pennies. And I eyeballed this at about 8,000, 8,500, very briefly without fully adding it. That is from the first and then to the first, so not counting each of the 85s, just the 185K. So 8,500 of 36,000 was covered off, meaning we still ended up losing close to 30,000, 28,000 in the month. That's not sustainable. That is not sustainable if we get down to near zero. Now, not every month is the same. June came with some added bonuses because we had some national championship type victories, but every country pays out a little bit. But like South Korea paid 1,200, Georgia paid 25, Cambodia paid 25, Azerbaijan paid 25. Those are probably the wins. But even in that more substantial month, I mean, we're still only looking at about 10,000 as I kind of eyeballed that one as well. So our June winnings, best month, still was only a couple thousand better. So if we're only winning between 7,500 and 10K a month, we're not offsetting that 36K, not even close. Now, you do get a cash injection in December for us, or we're at a state of things where that's about 200,000. That means we can't lose 400K when you only start with 400K and only recover 200K of that. That's a 200K deficit that will eventually lead to nothing. Now, we are offsetting a decent amount of that with winnings throughout the year, but that's only about 80K offset. Meaning, if we're going to remain financially viable, we are going to have to close that gap a little bit next year or get into Continental Pro. So let's take a look at how likely we might get into Continental Pro, and then take another hard look at the finances on what it is we might need to do to balance this out a little bit closer. So first thing, to determine your placement. For those who don't know, I think most of you know this by now, but to determine your placement in levels, it's not based on performance. You could have the best Continental Super Prestige ranking of any team, and it makes absolutely no difference on whether your Continental team makes it to Continental Pro. Top 35 teams, or at least from 18th to 35th, so 17 teams, will make Continental Pro. But that ranking is determined by the quality of the average of your top 3 riders only. So only your top 3 riders matter. And you can tell who your top 3 are when you organize your attributes, your riders, by evaluation. So at 4.5 stars, Oscar is our number 1 best rider. He is, on paper, better than Yamamoto. That's because even though they are both at 4.5 stars, internally in the database, it's actually broken down to tenths of a point. So their rating, which shows up on here as 4.5 stars, actually breaks down quite a bit more than that, gets a bit deeper, and Oscar is rated above Yamamoto, even though that average sum, the range that they both fall into, falls into 4.5 stars. But our next guy was, about a month ago, Shu, as he was the first one to hit 4 stars of that following group. We only had 1 or 2 3.5 star guys when the year started. That number's grown quite a bit. Not only has it grown, but now we've flipped one guy up to 4 stars, and then just recently, the 20-year-old Iranian is now our second 4-star guy, and his rating comes in slightly above that of Shu. And because of that, that 1 or 2/10 higher, or let's say 3/10 higher, would raise the average of our 3 guys. As it's 3/10, divide that by 3, it raises our average by 1/10 overall. And that 1/10 is important to your calculations. And here is where that part matters. So you have down to a 10th the average of those top 3 riders and what it comes out to. So we are a team that come in at 75 points, which is 27th best right now. Now that is comfortably in the middle of Continental Pro. But I'll show you very quickly that there are plenty of very good riders out there that have expired contracts or expiring contracts at the end of the season and are going to get picked up and are going to get signed. And I'm not sure. Let me be sure. Give me 1 second. So I've just confirmed that the only rider that we were interested in, the only Asian rider out there who could have given us a rise to our average at the top, was Lutsenko. And believe me, I agree with you. I want to sign Lutsenko. I would love to sign Lutsenko. Especially because he would give us that bonus, give us that edge, give us another 4.5-star guy, giving us 3 of them, which would definitely mean we'd have a 4.5-star average of our group. And that ranking would give us a better chance at making Continental Pro. But outside of him, none of the others. Now, there's still a chance, because the final tally is not taken until October. There's still a chance that we see one of those top 3 guys or somebody below push that average up a little bit more. So we can still see it rise internally, but no external signings, since we cannot afford Lutsenko. And I'll cover how and why in just a second, but you might already have the indicators from what we've previously spoken about a few minutes ago. But nobody we can sign is going to make us any better. But everybody else is going to be signing guys that will make them better. Now, we were 75th in the rankings this last season. No. Season before? Were we 54th or 50th this last season? I know we're going to be better than that this year, where we're at. But I'm not sure we're quite there yet to crack the top 35. By October, we might. I think we're going to be really close to it this year, but I have a feeling we might still be about 40th when those final tallies come in, but we'll see. Every 10th matters. Every little improvement makes a difference. You can see just how close these rankings are, as you know, we're looking at 3 stars and above, beginning somewhere around right in here. Those guys are all 3 stars. Now, we are better than 3 stars as a team rating by, well, there's the hint of it. There's a 10th. Say we're 2/10. So 3 stars and 2/10. Not a straight translation of what we have on the team index, or on the rider index. It's evaluated differently, but it's ultimately taken from the same numbers. Now, the top end, obviously, we're not competitive with that, but World Tour right now, 3.5 stars, the cutoff for that. We're close to that, and yet there's a good chance that we're not even going to make Continental Pro. That's how tight things are, and how 1/10 can be enough to move you up 5 spots, 8 spots, and be the difference. So getting a second look at our finances. The dilemma is, our current rate of decrease in our monthly finances is not sustainable for another year. We could get through it for this year. We will recover a decent amount of it, but ultimately we're looking at losing at minimum 120K and having less than 120K at the end of the season. We're already down to 187. So in theory, we must decrease the amount of deficit next year, because recovery wise, if we're adding 200K and we're down to like 40,000, we're going to be at 240 next year, but we started at 400 and we're going to have barely anything left. So that 160,000 worth of losses over the course of the year, a year from now, would bankrupt us. Let's do the math on the difference from right now to where we're going to be for the start of the year. We have 2 expiring contracts. That's going to save us 5,000. Now remember, we are starting with a deficit of 36. We make an average of maybe 8K a month, so we've got 28,000 in deficit to cover. That's 5. We have an increase in sponsorship money of 14,000, so that's 19,000. That helps. That helps a lot. That still doesn't actually cover it, right? That still gives us a small deficit. But I don't want to sign nobody. So we have a real dilemma on our hands. Now, Lutsenko would ask for about 30K, is my estimate. Could be more. Could easily be more. It could be closer to 40. Remember, we, at best, would have gotten him in yellow. He's not. He's in red. We can't. We can't sign him now anyway, even if we wanted to. But had we committed our dossier points to him, we wouldn't have gotten him beyond yellow. He would have asked for more money as a result. He's already making close to 30,000. We are a team with no reputation, and he wouldn't have really wanted to join us. He would have asked for a large sum. Guaranteed over 30,000, probably closer to 40,000, maybe even over that. We don't have 30 to 40,000 to spend. We need to cut back on the spending, and we have 19,000 either added or freeing up combination wise. But what we did this year cannot be sustained on the same level next year. Therefore, we actually have to cut into that a little bit. So of that 19 that we're recovering, we're going to have to spend less than that to make a dent. Now, how much dent we have to make, I don't know for sure. If we sign 4 riders on a minimum, we spend 10,000. That's a dent of 9,000 per month. That's 100K over the year. So I'm looking at probably only being able to sign, really, realistically, 4 riders. That's it. So let's get on with that. Signing number 1 is coming out of Israel, 19-year-old, and he has actually progressed. He's on a youth team right now, and he has progressed from a 5.5-star potential in the sprint to world-class level 6-star sprint. It looks like he can hit an 85. We get this guy on our team, and we've got sprints in the bag. Eventually, he's got a long ways to go yet. He's only a 70 flat, 70 acceleration, 68 sprint right now today. But man, oh man, this is an epic signing for us. I'm in a weird position. I've got a lot of expiring contracts coming up in 1 to 2 years. But we're only going to be signing a few guys. So 3 years from now, there's going to be almost no expiring contracts. There's going to be almost no money that we have to bother to spend, and by that point we will have an increase in funds and can probably put some money away in the year before, because we will certainly in 3 years be at least Continental Pro by that stage. So Schechter, as much as I want to put him on a shorter contract, to re-sign him for less, we need to, for now, protect him and getting him out of the window of all the other expiring contracts and put him on a 3-year deal. The database has gifted us with 2 excellent Israelis, with another 19-year-old, Lieberman, who is 5.5-star stage racer potential, and you see just how good he's going to get. This guy is going to be capable, potentially, of at least competing for a top 5 at the GC level, and that is going to be a massive boost to us to have these guys. Now, without support on extreme difficulty, it's going to be difficult to win, the Giro or La Vuelta with him. But if we can get an invite to one, this guy can absolutely, get us in that top 10 and maybe that top 5 at some stage. And of course, for the same reason just discussed, I need to sign all 4 of these guys to 3-year deals this year, which again is going to make it really tricky for these 2 to try to retain both. But here's the thing about retention of them. I don't have to keep them myself. If they go off and win Grand Tours with somebody else, they are still going to boost the nation effectively. It's going to be hard for us to continue to grow and change without having, our best guys on the team. But with limited budget, you have limited budget until you can eventually grow and change that. But having better riders coming out of Israel is a good thing for us long term, as there's going to be the next Lieberman, there's going to be the next Schechter. So it's not a terrible thing if we do get backed into a corner and can't re-sign all of these guys. Having a world-class sprinter is fantastic, but without a good lead-out man, you're still not going to win very often. Therefore, we've got to add in one other who is excellent in the sprint, or will be excellent in the sprint eventually, and we've already got some good sprinters, so this will complete the sprint team for now. But 2 excellent riders, and this one out of Taiwan. And I do think I'm going to remain successful at signing just 4 riders for the coming season as we wrap things up with Brandon No. Brandon is, at heart, he's a puncher, but he's a bit of an all-arounder. You can see, hills-wise, he should hit about an 80, but his time trialing, his mountain rating, should get very, very close, as we should see him hit, 78s, 79s in those departments. So a combination of about a 78 mountain and an 80 hill rating should be pretty good for Brandon No, and pretty good for us, as that's Lutsenko type levels. And if he's got a 79 in time trial as well, he's not going to be winning any Grand Tours, but he's going to be pretty good, pretty well rounded in that, and he's going to pick up plenty of wins. And that does it in a country that doesn't quite have the training profile at this stage, and that would really, really potentially boost Korea quite a bit. So unfortunately, the incorporation of our development team and bringing in those 10 additional riders has really, really tied our hands and left us in a pretty tight spot. This is going to cut into our monthly deficit by 100,000 over the course of the year. And if we lost, or if we eventually end up losing about 160K this year, well, that's going to cut that by more than half, right? Eliminating 100,000 of that. So we would potentially lose another 60K next year, and hopefully just about make it through the year. And I would be quite grateful if we, get a better sponsorship offer at some stage. But in the meantime, it's not the worst prospect. If we are the team that finds the young prospects, develops them, makes them better, eventually push ourselves into at least Continental Pro level, being able to retain enough of them for that, but introducing them properly into the database, getting their levels up, and getting them out into the peloton, even if they end up going with bigger contracts to other teams in the short term, in the coming seasons. Eventually, we want to have the finances to be able to house all of them ourselves, because you and I both know that we will outperform the AI all the time. It's going to happen. But that's not to say that they alone cannot perform at a high level. But there's times where you get these 18, 19-year-old riders with high potential that disappear out of the database. So if we could go in and find them each season, bring them into our team, introduce them to the world, and then as they have expiring contracts with us where we can't afford them and they go sign with a big world tour team, if they go and have success there, if they go and become a Lutsenko, a Vlasov, a Carapaz, a Bernal, right? If they become a young talent who goes out and does a decent amount of winning, then it's still going to get us the end result that we need eventually. And then, of course, in the medium term, we want to build our finances to a level that will no longer have them be, well, no longer have us be the team that has to supply bigger teams. Have us be the team that can retain these guys ourselves. Now, there was different ways to do this, right? You could invest in a smaller team, invest in a smaller group of riders, and maybe see success. I'm hoping that putting more good riders in the field long term is going to have the outcome we need it to. We'll see if that's the right approach. I can see value in doing it the other way, but I can see value in doing it this way as well. Getting more good young riders on bigger teams ultimately can have its benefit. But this year, anyway, definitely starts the change of kind of switching that approach back up to something a little more traditional of going for the better prospects and fewer in quantity. So next season, I don't think we'll re-sign quite as many. By the way, for those curious about how the scouting has progressed in itself, we still haven't gotten any reliable talents coming out of scouting. It doesn't mean I'm going to give up on it. And like I said, from last season to this season, it took a step back by having some new hires. Somebody in the comments mentioned something that I would love to get involved in once our finances are in better shape. Currently, scouting as it is problematic. And I actually think that to really resolve our finances next year, I might just need to let the better scout that we signed, let him go. 1, he's not Asian. 2, there are 3 Asian scouts that are available. And I think in the short term, not necessarily next year, in the short term, bringing a second of them into the team, that'll give us 2 Asian scouts, and then the third one would still be out there in the database, available for hire, maybe a year or 2 further down the road, and we go and get them. More scouts. There's 4 regions in Asia. If we could take 1 scout and put them in each region, even though it's not going to help them find more riders, the bonuses that they get right now with 2 regions per scout. It's actually 5 regions, I believe, but Japan's a region in and of itself. But let's say we have 4 scouts, okay? What they can do is they can do detailed observations more frequently with more scouts, which means you can actually get more detailed information more readily available by the end of the season. I like that approach. Even though we're not going to get a ton of expertise in particular regions, that makes a certain amount of sense. And the really good scouts, they aren't actually doing anything extra compared to all the others. They can achieve higher levels regionally. And I was wanting to kind of hang on to that one guy to see how much he can grow compared to our cheaper regional scouts. But anyway, there was testing I wanted to do there. But finances are tricky. So we'll just have to kind of wait and see. Maybe we'll have to play that out in a few years and then go from there. It's only been a week and a half. We've already dropped to 30th. And looking at the remaining riders, the way signings normally work in this game is the best riders go first. And once that established and once those big money deals are taken care of, then you start to see the rest of it kind of filter out. So the World Tour teams, they get in, they get active first, they do their business. So getting down to the Continental Pro level takes a while. And even though everything's still just getting started, and we still got a ton of 5.5-star guys left, and quite a few 5-star guys. I mean, this is a very big pool of riders that are going to boost squads. Most of those guys are going to existing World Tour teams. And you can see just how, out of reach virtually all of them are. I mean, Leknesund at 20 points is the only one who seems to have much of any interest in us. And that's a lot better than it was, by the way, a year ago, 2 years ago. But being that we've already dropped down to 30, I think we're going to easily fall outside of the top 35 for the coming season. The only way we stay in is if internally something changes in our top 3 and changes in, a good, strong, positive way. See one of these guys hit a high level 4, or you see one of these guys jump to a 4.5, or one of these guys jump to 5 stars, right? Something in that top 3 has to be a significant jump, not just, one more guy comes up slightly better than Hossein Zada. Right? That alone won't give us the edge. That would give us back a couple spots. That could put us back up to 28th or 27th temporarily, but it wouldn't get the job done. I mean, you can see right now that our profile is identical. The new guys have wonderful potential, but they're not there now, which of course is why, they're great signings for us, as they're, minimum. We got 2 guys coming out of the Israel Cycling Academy, 1 coming out of KSPO Professional, and 1, new guy, 19, and 20 years old for the 4 new signings. So we continue to get younger, stronger, better, yes. But Continental Pro, not without something internally going really right over the next 2 months. So it might be another year before we actually get there, but I know you're getting close to having that breakthrough. And we definitely have the right kind of riders that, in a couple of years, I could see us having multiple 5-star guys and easily making Continental Pro. But as much as I would love to get into our last 3 races that we had planned for the year in this episode and wrap this season up, one, I got my mouth jabbing along there for a little bit, and it took more time than I expected. But 2, there's only so much time in the day, and these episodes take a lot longer to produce than the normal episode, because you're not just covering a short period of time. You're doing big efforts, lots of quick sim, button clicks, wait for it to sim before you can, continue on and do what you need to do. And our last couple of races are not going to be for quite a while yet. That's going to take me hours to do that. And I don't have hours remaining today. And it's night before this episode's set to come out. So I don't even think it's actually short anyway. So we're okay. But those 3 races and our season wrap will happen next time. And then depending on how long it takes to get through those, we might just get to January, or hey, 1 more episode in a season. It's not a bad thing, right? That's going to do it for this one, though. I'm Decathlon Gamer. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Have a good one. Be safe out there, and bye for now.